Welcome back to the Run Radio podcast. My name's Trina. My guest today, Dr. Ben, and I did the fail. I didn't ask how to pronounce your last name.
It's Galyardt.
Okay, Galyardt, welcome. You are in the wellness realm of things, which I am very interested in, all things health and wellness. So tell me what you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing to think about is the body can heal, and that we were designed beautifully and amazingly. And if you do enough of the good stuff and take out enough of the bad stuff, the body can function pretty amazingly. I always think about my kids love hunting, and so I've got 4 boys, so we've got lots of hunting in our lives. But we'll go out and we'll shoot a deer or an elk or these big, beautiful, majestic animals. And as we're processing them and everything, I'm like, okay, they don't have cancer, they don't have hypothyroid, and they're not 60 pounds overweight, and they're not dealing with IBS or constipation or whatever. And they're going out and they're living the life like they're supposed to. They're eating the grass, they're running around, they're doing the things that they need to do on a daily basis, and they're living and functioning like they're supposed to. But what happens if you take a dog and you look at what's dealing with dogs nowadays, and they've got hip replacements, they've got cancer, they've got diabetes and hypothyroid, they're on medications, all these different things. They've come into our houses. They're dealing with the chemicals. They're dealing with our toxins, with our Wi-Fi, with all these different things, and then they start getting all of our diseases. So we do enough of the right stuff, and the bodies can function like they're supposed to. We do enough of the bad stuff, and that's where we are right now: chronic diseases.
Now, I was looking at the list with some of the stuff that you treat and work with, autoimmune conditions. I'm on that list. I'm also on the long COVID list, unfortunately. So I would like to know, I know a lot of like the functional medicine, getting to the root of the problem, and I'm all for that. But I also believe that sometimes you just got to work with what you got, and I know it's a delicate balance, but for example, what have you learned so far with the COVID cases that you've seen when it comes to long COVID? Because it has been a mess for me.
Yeah, so there's a few things. One, there was a research study done where they looked at people lots of people that had COVID, and the ones that had long COVID symptoms versus ones that didn't have long COVID symptoms. The ones that had long COVID symptoms, the vast majority of those had reactivated Epstein-Barr virus, where the ones that didn't did not have a reactivated Epstein-Barr virus, which is the monovirus. And so we know that COVID has been able to rev up other dormant viruses. So for some people, they now are dealing with this low-grade viral infection, not a COVID virus, but Epstein-Barr virus. We know that COVID has been able to drive and stimulate autoimmune in bodies. And I've seen people that we had helped get into remission from autoimmune conditions, and then COVID or even post-COVID, even post-COVID shots, with the same spike proteins, were able to drive that autoimmune reaction back into a full-blown state again. So we've seen a lot of patients with what's called POTS, vertigo. POTS is going to be this blood pressure issue when they go from seated to standing and they crash. We have not failed yet at reversing and helping patients reverse their POTS. So what is the same basic idea? Yes, we can say, oh, but I've got MS, or I've got rheumatoid arthritis, or I've got Sjogren's, or I've got long COVID, or whatever. But it's the same general philosophy that we have to get into. I had a patient today, flew out from California to see us, and she had both MS and Hashimoto's. And it's like, well, I'm not going to do an MS protocol or a Hashimoto's protocol or a MS and Hashimoto's protocol. We're going to do a protocol for her body. So as we go through and do that basic evaluation and figure out what's going on, then we can start saying, okay, For her, it was her adrenals were out of balance. Her liver wasn't detoxifying like it was supposed to. She also had a chronic viral. She had mono when she was 14. Her markers were showing really, really high there. Her vitamin D was low. Her blood sugar was swinging. She was in the pre-diabetic range. All these things. So we have to go through system by system by system and help correct those imbalances.
What are some of the things that people can do like right now to start getting their self in balance or just to live, I guess, I don't want to say right, but as clean maybe as possible before they have to come see you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things I talk about all the time, one of my books that I wrote is called "Blood Sugar Doesn't Lie," and this is something we look with all of our patients, whether it's autoimmune or long COVID or prediabetes or PCOS or whatever condition it is. Getting your blood sugar stabilized is going to be one of the most important things you can possibly do. I like that number to be between 85 and 110 all
Okay.
day, every day. If you poke your finger and check your glucose levels, you want that 85 to 110. I always say we could reverse or prevent upwards of 90% of chronic health conditions if everybody would stabilize their blood sugar in that range. So glucose management is huge. So many people think it's just high blood sugar is the problem, but actually the swings are really, really challenging for the body. So I don't want it more than maybe 25-point swings. We have a lot of patients 100 to 120 points. They'll go from 60 to 180 in the same day, and that is so stressful on the body. So we use what's called a continuous glucose monitor with every one of our patients. You slap it on the back of your arm and it goes to your phone, tells you exactly what your blood sugar is doing. And so all day, every day, it used to just be for type 1 diabetics. Now it's available to everybody. And so we've been able to help so many people get their blood sugar stabilized. I call it the Ozempic alternative because so many people are getting on these semaglutides and causing all these other issues, and they're getting Ozempic face and Ozempic butt and all that droopy stuff, and they're having all these issues. And yet it really comes down for a lot of those people. How can you stabilize your blood sugar, get it consistent all day, every day?
I'm glad you brought up blood sugar. I know that my mother is type 1 diabetic and has had a lot of trouble keeping the blood sugar consistent.
Yeah.
Like you said,
Yep.
I mean, either she'll be running high or low. How, like, when it comes back to the autoimmune part, though, is the best way to treat that type 1 with just trying to be as consistent with the sugars as possible? Or what other things would you do? Or is there anything you would do different from the doctor that uses insulin? I mean, you wouldn't say to a type 1
Absolutely.
not to, would you?
Absolutely. So two things. One, you have to be on insulin if you're type 1 diabetic. Your pancreas has been attacked. I've never seen somebody repair that. There are studies with stem cells that they're doing now, and like the last one I saw, it was 50% of the people were able to get off insulin when they're doing stem cell therapy for the pancreas. We're still not there yet for the general population. So yes, they need to be on insulin, but I've had so many type 1 diabetics that we've worked with that we've been able to get them 100 to 140 all day, every day. And as long as they eat the way they need to eat, because it really comes down to consistency. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you're eating consistent things that you know are going to affect the blood sugar, and then you just do your insulin appropriately, it's going to be very, very easy. I've had type 1 diabetics get their A1C down to 5.3, 5.4, 5.5. Really, really good numbers because they've been able to stabilize it. But here's the number one problem, and this happens with type 1 diabetics, with Hashimoto's, with Graves' disease, with quite a few autoimmune conditions, is that we say, okay, you're type 1 diabetic. That's an autoimmune disease, but
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to do anything to treat autoimmune in your body. We're just going to give you insulin. And
Okay.
here's what happens is the average person that has one autoimmune condition has multiple, just like my patient today that has MS and Hashimoto's, because it's not that, oh, you're special and you get type 1 and you're special and you get Hashimoto's and you're special and you get rheumatoid arthritis. It's your body is jacked up enough, has all of these systems that are out of balance that are causing that immune inflammatory cascade from low vitamin D to leaky gut to adrenals to blood sugar to liver to infections to environmental toxins and estrogenic events and food allergens and all these things. So why wouldn't it go from one condition that it's attacking over here, one system, to another? I have some patients that they're 3, 4, 6, 7 different diagnosed autoimmune conditions. So for somebody with type 1 diabetes, that doctor is totally happy never addressing the why, never calming down that autoimmune, and there's a very good chance that that person starts attacking other conditions, other systems.
Okay. So tell me, we'll use me as an example. At age 6, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. So I feel like the doctors have done the best they can to treat it. I've had a
Sure.
pretty active lifestyle, but what would you do different if I walked through your doors?
At your age or at 6?
Either or, if you would have started
Yeah.
out and then if you would see me now.
Yeah. So at 6, if someone's got psoriatic arthritis, juvenile RA, I've got 3 15-year-olds right now that have multiple autoimmune conditions that I'm working on. So it's the same thought process, but especially with the kiddos, we think about what is going to be driving this immune inflammatory cascade, because they're not having estrogenic events. They haven't had a lot of the environmental toxins, a lot of things that have driven. So a lot of it comes down to the gut, comes down to that small intestine lining, to leaky gut. We've got to repair that. We've got to work on the microbiome, which is going to be the good bacteria, bad bacteria, everything going on in the gut. We're going to need to look for infections. Maybe there was some kind of viral infection, some bacterial infection going on. Look for food allergies, food sensitivities that could be driving that immune inflammatory cascade. So, that there's certain things on kids that we can and can't do, but I see just as many teens and 20-something-year-olds as I do 50 and 60-year-olds. So what's happening 10, 20 years ago in somebody in their 40s, 50s, 60s is now happening in their teens and 20s. So we see the issues starting younger and younger and younger. So that's where we would have to run blood work, do the same workup, versus if somebody is actually in this state where it's 5 years or 25 years or 35 years later, unless they have gone through each and every one of their systems to correct those and help those get into the best balance possible, unless they know exactly what their blood sugar is doing, unless they know they worked on their leaky gut, all these things, then we're going to just be guessing, and they're going to be, okay, well, hopefully I'm not attacking any other tissues. Because again, the average person, unless they have dealt with each and every one of those systems, the average person will get additional autoimmune conditions.
Now, do you typically advise patients to work with a functional doctor in addition to their, their mainstream doctor, or
Yeah.
in addition to?
Yeah, absolutely. So most people that come to us have already been through the ringer. They've already tried this lady today, she's doing an injection every 8 weeks and doesn't like how she feels on it and wants to get off that. But she also knows that, hey, we've got to fix these 8 systems that are out of balance. correct those, build it up, and then she can start weaning off of that with the help of her doctor. So, you know, I think, you know, I've had a few patients that have been diagnosed with MS, and they're like, you know what, I don't want to go on the drugs. I don't want to go down that path. I don't want to do those things. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's your prerogative. You're going to make that decision. I'm going to do everything I can in my wheelhouse. And then I've had some other people. I had a college kid a few years ago with MS, and he's like, you know what? I don't want to destroy any more tissue, so I'm going to use their medication, but I'm also going to do everything you tell me to do because I want to calm down and go there. So you know, it just really depends on that person. And some people, you know, are like, you know what, I'm going to throw everything at it, and other people are like, you know, I've been burned and by the medical model too many times and feel horrible and inflamed, and you know, it's caused other conditions and different things that I'm gonna do everything I can to allow my body to function as well as possible.
Tell me more about the book you've written and how people can find out more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've actually got two books. They're both on Amazon. You can grab those. One is Rebuild Your Brain, Stop the Damage, Start the Repair, and all about brain aging and a lot of the things that can impact the brain, but then also things that you can do to repair those damaged tissues in the brain. And then my second book was Blood Sugar Doesn't Lie, which is kind of my life work. We've been using glucose monitoring from finger prick to CGMs for the last 10 plus years, and just really have learned so much about how it's intimately involved in almost every system in the body. And so both of those are on Amazon. You can grab those, and yeah, it's fun because you know, it definitely helps people understand a little bit more of our philosophy, but kind of put some other things on their head. And like, you know what, you know, there for a lot of these things like Alzheimer's, there's no amount of drugs or surgery that are going to prevent or stop Alzheimer's. You know, it comes from the vast majority is what we're putting in our mouth, what we're eating, what we're drinking, and that's where it's got to start. You know, you can approve these new drugs, $50,000 a year that Medicare is paying for some of these Alzheimer's drugs, and they don't even show that they reverse anything. They maybe slow it down, maybe, and we're spending $50,000 per person per year. I mean, it's amazing the type of you know, every person that they could have home oxygen therapy, they could have sauna, they could have exercise equipment, a personal chef. You know, I could change if you would give me $50,000 to work with each person. I mean, everybody would be in an absolutely different place.
A lot of it does start in the kitchen.
Absolutely.
What made you even want to follow into this functional medicine field?
Yeah, absolutely. So originally, when I was in high school, my mom collapsed at one of my football games, and they went down this path of figuring out that she had MS. And she was a school teacher. She got Teacher of the Year. She'd leave at 5:30 in the morning, get home at 5:30 at night, and then got MS. She had to go on disability. She ended up going on all the drugs at that time in the 90s, got a cane, got a wheelchair, had to use the little scooter at Walmart to get around the store. And we were like, man, that stinks. It's, you know, this is MS, it's autoimmune. She's in this downward spiral. I don't know what's going to happen. So when I was in college, my parents, they retired, and my dad retired. They moved down to this little town in Missouri, and about 10,000 people. And there was a doctor there doing functional medicine even before it was called functional medicine. And he started working through system by system by system with my mom, to the point where she got off all the drugs. She gave away her wheelchair, gave away her cane, and her last MRI about 20 years ago showed no more plaque. And her neurologist said, well, you don't have MS anymore. And she's 80 years old, just turned 80 this year. She no longer has MS. She does granny boot camp. She takes my kids fishing. The week of her birthday in March, I called my dad. I was like, "Hey, what are you guys up to?" And she said, my dad said, "Oh, your mom was up on the roof today cleaning out the gutters." And I go, "Is that safe?" And he said, "Well, I asked her the same question, and she said, I'm a lot more nimble than most 80-year-olds." So, if somebody can heal from MS, what else can the body heal from? And so
Yeah.
that's the miracle that I've seen so many times with our patients.
Sounds definitely like worth investigating about. Now, you specifically, where are you located?
So, but my brick and mortar office is in Colorado, but we see probably 90% of our patients virtually, and so
Okay.
we can get blood work done anywhere in the U.S. We can do Zoom just like are right now. I'm on Zoom all day, every day with patients, and so are my other doctors in F8 and our nutritionists. So yeah, we love working with patients all the way from California to Florida to New York to Texas and everything in between.
Well, I'm in Missouri, so that's
Oh, good.
interesting. So that kind of raised a brow. All right. Thank you for sharing so much. That's very great knowledge. Come back anytime if you want to talk. We can zone in on a specific topic and learn more. I appreciate your time. Tell people where
Yes.
they can go again for your book, or if you have a website.
Yes. So Amazon, you can look up Dr. Ben Galyardt, Galyardt, and our website is F8. So the letter F, the number 8, wellcenters.com. And then we're on all the social channels, over 350,000 followers on TikTok, over 100,000 on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all over. So yep, if you just look up F8 Well Centers, you'll find us. We're out there.
I'll do it. Thanks so much. Be sure you're listening and watching at runradio.net.